If your team got guaranteed money, tell them call me.
Whoop. Make me say, my.
I done been around the world.
Yeah, I was made for this.
Player Performance with J.A. Cavalier.
Welcome to NBA Player Performance, Friday, November 1st, 2024, the beginning of the first full month of NBA basketball. It will be a great month. We have a great show for you guys today, featuring myself, the Shark, Junior Brown, Luke Shuey, and Coach Rick. 9 games on the card today, a lot of conversation, and tons of officials. Before we begin the show, make sure you guys head on over to ylose.com, YLOSE.com for all packages, full season VIP plays, and more. Make sure you drop a like on this video, thumbs up, drop a comment. I will interact with you. Tell us what you guys are on tonight. I'll give you my analysis and we can interact. We appreciate you guys immensely watching the show and desiring domination. Now we get into the show. Let's dominate. Magic at Cavaliers, 7 o'clock in Cleveland. The first of the month, November, a great month of NBA basketball. We're here with Luke, the prop master, and of course, Junior Brown. A bunch of plays in this game, a lot of angles, a rematch of the playoffs last year, a 7-game series won by Cleveland in Cleveland. We'll open up this conversation with Junior going to Cleveland in the first half, an official.
Yeah, so I've got Cleveland in the first half as my official. I'm not really willing to lay this big number in this spot. Shark, has mentioned this time again. We've seen in the NBA in the last 2 seasons this concerted effort with the load management on the rise and stars missing games, regularly. That the what do you want to call them? The Robins, the Butlers, the whatever you want to call them, the guys who assist, the guys who play secondary roles, the guys who are B-listers, seem to come together and put in concerted efforts to screw up whatever you thought was going to happen. So I don't want to blindly take Cleveland here, but I will admit some of my biases. First of all, my first bias is that I love Kenny Atkinson, and I think that what he's doing in Cleveland is actually for real. They're a team who are already flirting with top 3 in the East, top 4 in the East for the last couple of seasons, and I think they're ready to claim that second spot. Now, will that happen? That remains to be seen, but they're playing elite-level defense, which was their calling card at the start of this little mini upward turn from, obviously Cleveland was a franchise in disarray, and now they've turned it around since LeBron left. And I think that what Kenny Atkinson is doing is sustainable, whereas what the Magic is doing is a little bit unsustainable in the sense that they're 25th in the league right now in made field goals per game, even though they're 7th in made threes. I think once that 3-point variance swings the other way, plus Banchero being out, it's going to be a difficult run, and I'm sure Shark will get into their upcoming schedule after today, which is absolutely brutal. So I'm going to take Cleveland early because, just to close out this point, they're averaging 1.2 points per 100 possessions in the first half, which I believe is 3rd in the league right now, while holding opponents to just above 1 point per possession in the first half. So they've been dominant in the first half. I'm going to play that angle. They look good. Cleveland first half. Shark, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Orlando did not perform particularly well on the road in Cleveland last year early. But as you mentioned, Paolo Banchero, I think to the surprise of many, including myself, out for 4 to 6 weeks with a strained oblique, which truthfully is a brutal injury for an NBA player, really in the side for the extension of a shot. Really painful stuff. And we saw this in Chicago 2 nights ago. Orlando couldn't score the ball in the fourth quarter. Maybe Paolo pulled that in the third quarter and the team just fell apart. But he is not playing tonight, and Luke is with us, the prop master he is. I think Paolo not playing does facilitate other players in certain environments, and you're looking at Wendell Carter Jr. over in the rebounds market.
And this is a heavy lean for me. It's not an official play because I think it's super hard to predict just what the Magic is going to do without their lead guy and one of the top usage rate performers percentage-wise in the NBA. But look at what the team has to make up for. I mean, he's putting up 29 points per game, 9 rebounds per game. Who's going to come up with that production? I think on the glass, it has to be Wendell Carter Jr. His line's sitting pretty low yet. You can snag it at 8.5 right now. And it's a little bit low. It is lower than it probably should be because he's facing Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, the trees that Cleveland has. But Carter's put up 10.4 rebounds per game so far this year. That's 2 above the line. Plus, you're getting 9 rebounds of wiggle room for that Banchero's not going to be snagging. So I like it as a value play. And then also, lastly, we saw the 7-game series last year. No one could score during certain stretches. There's just going to be a lot of missed buckets. I think there's going to be a ton of rebounding available tonight. So that's why I like Carter Jr. over 8.5 boards.
Yeah, great stuff there. And my official play on this game, Orlando +8. That has gotten steam down in the market. And I think that's fairly noteworthy, of course, with Banchero off the team tonight. Market steaming towards Orlando. What's going on? I think there's that continuing dynamic in pro basketball where when the best player is not on the team, the rest of the players rally immensely to the moment, particularly in the first game in an injury sequence here. And more data analytics here, which I think are really sharp on this game. I was looking at Cleveland last night, and I was friendly reminded of what Junior said. Kenny Atkinson has this team playing great basketball. 5-0 straight up, 5-0 ATS. But when I really started to go through it, I wasn't overly impressed by who they played and how it went down. Blowout of Toronto, barely covered against Detroit, blowout of Washington. Those are 3 non-playoff teams from last year. Backdoored the Knicks on the road, down 13 in the third quarter. Could have definitely gone the Knicks direction there. And then blew out the Lakers, who are 0-2 ATS on the road. So none of those, in my opinion, are overly impressive. And when you're 5-0 ATS early window season, you're not going to run a clean sheet for 82. Ultimately, you do want to sell high on that. And the Orlando side of this game does bring a nice buy low. Orlando is 0-3 ATS last 3. As I mentioned, they cratered down in Chicago the other night. I think they will come out totally rejuvenated off of that. And in terms of the actual calendar spot, Cleveland is in a brutal spot tonight. They're on the front end of a back-to-back. Tomorrow night, they play at Milwaukee, their top division rival. And then Monday night, they come back home for a home-and-home with Milwaukee. So you beat Orlando in the playoffs last year. You performed well at home against Orlando last year in the regular season. You have a massive look ahead. And Cleveland is 4-11 ATS last 15 with this roster group in the front end of a back-to-back. And final point on this game, Paolo not in the lineup. Last year, only 2 games. Orlando went 1-1 ATS. They blew out Brooklyn at home and covered a massive spread by almost 30 points, which is very impressive. And they did lose at Atlanta. But the key point there, they outcompeted Atlanta in 3 of the 4 quarters. Atlanta got hot for 1 quarter. So they played 7 out of 8 very good quarters last year without Paolo Banchero. I think this game's going to be tight tonight. I have Cleveland to win this game at the absolute most by 6 or 7 points. +8 official. Junior on the first half. And Luke Shuey imparting knowledge, as always. Wendell Carter Jr. over in the rebounds market, just a lead. 2 officials, 1 lead. Let's dominate. Knicks at Pistons, Friday night basketball in Detroit. A very intriguing matchup to the surprise of many as Detroit is showing upward movement finally with this group. Junior's back for some conversation. Luke's back for another prop. Junior, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I don't have a play on this game. I do have a heavy lean to Jalen Duren, points plus rebounds, for the simple fact that we're talking about a Tom Thibodeau team who are currently 27th in defense, although you can't really make too much of that after 4 games played. But if you watch their games, the problem is pretty obvious. They're just leaking points in the paint. They're allowing opponents to shoot 75% close to the rim on layups and dunks, which is well above league average. But they're also allowing teams to get to the rim and shoot at 30% of their shots. So it's like a double-edged sword. They're allowing a ton of shots at the rim, and they're doing a really poor job of stopping those shots from going in. So until they get that cleaned up, on top of the fact that I think that Duren is playing very well against teams that don't have an inside presence. I know that's kind of a weird take. Jalen Duren is stopping me from betting on the Knicks, but the fact of the matter is Shark has been all over the Pistons plus points in the last 2 seasons, and I think this is one of those spots where they're an improved team with a better coach and they play harder. I'm not going to just blindly take the Knicks here, so that's why it's a stay away until I get more info.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, this team bottomed out last year, I think surprisingly with Monty Williams, but now JB Bickerstaff in here. And this young group, honestly, in my opinion, is underrated because the national media is not covering this team at all. You guys were just discussing off the record, Cade Cunningham here, 6'6" point guard out of Oklahoma State. I mean, this guy's a hell of an athlete. He's also a competitive guy. And this group is rallying around his young energy with this new coach, JB Bickerstaff. And if you really look at what they're putting on record so far this year, this is a beautiful split here, straight up versus ATS efficiency. 1-4 straight up, 3-1-1 ATS. So they're competing very well at the number. And I think if you look at who they've played, they're very due to start winning games with more consistency. This early season calendar has been an absolute gauntlet of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Indiana, Cleveland, Boston, Miami, Philly, and now New York. This is the last one before their schedule starts to get softer. I said this before they played at Philly. I thought they'd get their first outright win because they were trending up. I think that continues tonight because I think the Knicks are really in a brutal, brutal calendar spot themselves. The Knicks are 2-2 ATS, showing zigzag. Blowout at Boston, blowout at home of Indiana, lost to Cleveland, just beat Miami. Now they got to go to Detroit. First non-playoff team of the season for the Knicks. And this is a great buy low on Detroit. New York, uncannily, is 15-0 straight up against Detroit last 15, winning the games by an average of 21.5 points per game. So you see that type of domination over a large window dating back to 2020. And now the line's only at 6.5. What are the books telling you? The matchup is tightening up. And one key point on the roster changeover, Julius Randle obviously traded in the offseason to Minnesota. Julius Randle used to shred Detroit. I think he made his whole contract playing Detroit. So this new Detroit group is going to play up. And final point last year, I'm not entirely sure why this was, but Detroit played New York 3 times last year, all 3 in New York. Detroit had 0 home games against the Knicks last year. Don't ask me why. But Detroit did play well against the number in New York last year. 3 big lines, 14.5, 11.5, 16.5. Detroit 2-1 ATS. Outright losses by 6 and 2 on the road. I think Detroit could honestly get an outright win here tonight. Detroit plus 6.5, an official play. And Luke Shuey waiting for this great conversation to come his way. Looking at Cade Cunningham under in the rebounds market at 5.5.
Yeah, and Sharky, I love your take. I'm going to tail the Pistons here. I think they could also win outright. That's a funky stat. You didn't share that pre-show here. 15-0 ATS, 21 points differential. That's nuts. No way it keeps up. But I'm on Cade under 5.5 boards here. It is an official free play for me here. I think that the public loves Cade. He's a stud. He's averaging 5.6 boards per game to start the year, and people see he's maybe the tallest or most athletic point guard in the NBA. So they think, oh, he's going to snag a lot of rebounds. I'm going to actually play the sharp side here and fade that because his stats last year, getting a ton of minutes, he only put up 4.3 boards per game. He played New York twice. He only had 2 rebounds and 5 rebounds, did not cover this line. And at a very early season sample size, New York is allowing the 6th fewest rebounds to the opposing point guard position. So for whatever reason, even though they're lacking some size down low, they don't let the point guard get in the paint. That might be just the way Brunson's playing and whatnot. I'm not sure. But yeah, and one of the last stat, Cunningham's not a guy who just like goes out and snags 10 plus rebounds. He never once had a double-digit rebound game last year. So I think he's going to have 3 or 4 tonight. And I want you guys to smack the under with me.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Obviously, 6'6" point guard, historically tall, but he's not, as you said, he's not playing down low. He's on the perimeter. You got to get long rebounds and chase rebounds more than anything. So, Luke, on the under, 5.5 rebounds. My official, Detroit. Let's get this outright win tonight, boys. 7 o'clock in Detroit. Let's dominate. Kings at Hawks, out of conference basketball on this Friday in Atlanta. Kings coming across country new roster, DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox still leading the group. Interesting matchup. We got Junior here and Luke, two officials. The game takes on its intrigue when we bet these grease fire games. Atlanta 0-5 ATS in total disruption. Junior's jumping off that and taking the team total over for Sacramento at 121.5.
Yeah, Shark and I have been doing shows for a couple of years together, so I think he already knows what I'm going to say. I don't really buy what the Kings are selling usually until this season, and I'm still not fully on board, which is why I'm not laying the points here, especially against a Hawks team that tends to play much, much better at home. I just think that the way that the Kings are playing this year, or the reason that I haven't bought into what they're doing in previous years is because Domantas Sabonis has basically been the offensive conductor, which if you want to call it, averaging 7-8 points a game, while De'Aaron Fox is the primary scorer. Now that DeMar DeRozan is in town, I think De'Aaron Fox has kind of finally found that balance where he's trying to be more of a playmaker and less of a scorer, and Domantas has benefited from that. DeMar continues to do his thing and is benefiting from that, and I think the Kings are just going to be better overall in the long run. I say all of that to say I think that's why they hit the over 121.5. More balanced scoring from them. Not to say that I have a problem with Malik Monk, but now Malik Monk can actually be a proper sixth man where he doesn't have to be the third leading scorer, second leading shot taker on the team. This is an Atlanta team that allows 123.6 points per game. So 121.5 for Sacramento should be fine. And just to your guys' point, De'Aaron Fox is due to explode at some point, and I think this might be the spot.
Yeah, without question. I mean, Atlanta is just I think one word, just disrupted at this point. Having moved some roster pieces, some very young players, not entirely sure this is the right coach. And as you mentioned, De'Aaron Fox, really the leader of this group, without any question there. And we're throwing it to Luke, over 24.5 points for De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, you kind of picked me up. I think this play correlates with what Junior's saying. Fox is really focusing on distributing the ball more and getting the other guys involved. But I think at some point he's got to say, all right, I need to be my offensive powerhouse that I am and get those shots up. Because he's been laid back this year. He's only averaging 21.5 points per game. But the books still post him at 24.5. They expect him to get going tonight, and I think he will. It's a great matchup. I expect 20-plus shot attempts. So far, he's only shooting 29% from three. That's also going to trend upward as we move forward. And then look at who they're playing. I think the biggest piece here is he sees Trae Young in front of him. What better opportunity to say, all right, my time to ball. Trae Young is a horrible defender. There's no way he can guard Fox one-on-one. And because of that, you see this in the stats. Atlanta is the second worst team at guarding the opposing point guard. They give up over 30 points per game. I see no reason Fox doesn't say, Friday night, Trae Young, bring it on. I hammer the over here, 24.5. Let's cash.
Yeah, and just jumping off that, something we were just discussing off the air, and we want to tell you guys on the air, last year, noticeable polarization for De'Aaron Fox in this matchup. 31 points on the road, only 12 at home. So you get a nice buy low in this matchup off a 12-point scoring output in the most recent matchup. And as you mentioned, the Hawks are not defending. Trae Young, one of the least inspirational players in the league, particularly on the defensive end. De'Aaron Fox will turn up in this matchup tonight. Official for Luke, over 24.5 points. And Junior on Sacramento, team total over 121.5. Lakers at Raptors, 7:30 north of the border in Toronto. Catching 9.5 points. A lot of conversation. Yet another game that people might not think is a big-time game. We disagree. The coach certainly disagrees. Taking the Raptors officially at plus 9.5.
Yeah, I like Toronto in this spot. The public is definitely going to hammer the Lakers because they're the Lakers, right? And you got a ton of guys out for Toronto. No Scotty Barnes, Kelly Olynyk's out, Bruce Brown. Emmanuel Quickly, last time I looked, was listed as doubtful. He's probably out. Still, we've talked about this numerous times. You're going to have a bunch of guys that are going to rally together and fight. They did get R.J. Barrett back. He had 20 on Monday night. Wednesday, he threw up 31. Toronto lost both of those games, but they did cover both, and they've actually covered their last 4 straight. Lakers on a third leg of a 5-game road trip. They're 0-2 already. I just feel like Toronto can keep this within double digits. Playing at home, they're actually 5-1 against the spread in their last 6. If you go back to last year, I like Toronto plus 9.5.
Yeah, I agree. Officially on plus 9.5 as well. And you said it. Toronto's performing very well on the number early season here. And I don't think it's going to go in the other direction tonight for a handful of reasons. The first thing here, which is much more off of into a narrative point, Halloween was last night. And certain teams in this league will have celebrated bigger than others. The Lakers and LeBron James. LeBron James is a Hollywood guy now. He takes hours to put on his costume. The Lakers absolutely celebrated Halloween last night. And truthfully, LeBron has also been noted as loving his red wine over the years and maybe some cocktails. I think this is potentially a hangover spot for the Lakers tonight. And you go to the psychology of the Raptors in this spot. I was looking at this last night and I was friendly reminded. Last year, Toronto lost a game in Los Angeles by 1 point, 132 to 131. This is not a rivalry game. They don't play in the same conference. Toronto doesn't have big-time players anymore. But one specific thing happened. The Lakers won that game because they had 23 free throws in the fourth quarter. And Raptors head coach, angry Serbian Darko Rajakovic, ranted in the postgame, slamming the table, calling out the league, calling out the officials for corrupting the game, throwing the game. I'm pretty sure he got a significant fine. But the point here is this is now a big-time rivalry game for the Raptors out of nowhere. And as Coach mentioned, the Raptors have been great recently. They're missing some players. These backups are going to run. They're going to compete. And the Raptors are 2-0 ATS against the West this year as a significant dog. And I think very specifically almost beat Denver outright at plus 8.5 in their home gym. And final point of the game. As Coach said, brutal spot for the Lakers. Third game of a trip, on the road for 10 days, north of the border. Lakers are already 0-2 ATS on the road, 3-0 ATS at home. It's a JJ Redick team. JJ's a smart guy. I think JJ has these guys turned up in LA and learning to play on the road. This will be a tight game. I have the Lakers to win this game on the average by 3 points. Get ready for a tight one here north of the border. Junior knows Canada well. Junior knows the Raptors well. Junior, what are your thoughts on this game?
I'm going to actually go back to something you said about LeBron and Halloween, because he posted yesterday a picture of him and his daughter, and he's like, hey, I'm with my daughter for Halloween or whatever. And you said, I know Toronto very well. That picture was not in Toronto. Now, I don't know if he would actually fly back to LA just for Halloween. I don't know the details on that, but that would be insane if that's the case. But nevertheless, Toronto, even though it is north of the border, is one of the most expensive cities in North America. If he wanted to go to a Halloween party, I promise you there was no shortage of that last night. If we're going to kick it back to what's on the court, I think for the Raptors and you guys to hit your play, as long as they can limit the turnovers, because that's what's been killing them. If they can limit the turnovers, then they definitely have a chance to cover here. Because I think the Lakers are going to slowly go back to the mean in terms of their shooting percentages. And the Raptors are a team that the fact that they don't shoot a lot of threes kind of puts them behind the 8 ball in a lot of spots because, this is the new NBA where everyone just jacks up the threes. But it does make the Raptors more efficient at scoring. Like, I'd rather see the Raptors take a ton of twos that they can make as opposed to jacking up a bunch of threes that they're probably not going to make. And I think that's why their offense is 12th in efficiency, which for the Raptors is punching way above their weight class. So the Raptors are actually playing well the way, as you guys said. If they can limit the turnovers, you guys should be good with this pick. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it really is the beauty of sports betting, finding so many psychological angles in this game. We think LeBron partied last night. We think Darko wants to turn the hell up tonight against this Lakers team. Collaboration official, Coach Rick and myself, take Toronto at plus 9.5, and let's cash this ticket. Pacers at Pelicans, 8 o'clock in New Orleans. Out-of-conference basketball, not really a rivalry game. Both teams looking inconsistent to bad. I think surprising seeing New Orleans in the state they are right now. Coach having an official on Indiana, I think agreeing with that. Indiana -4.5.
Yeah, I kind of like these dud type games. And I'm going to go the lesser of two evils here, really. New Orleans, ton of guys out, no McCollum and Herb Jones. Murray's out. Willie Green is definitely on the hot seat. And it's surprising. I looked up 74 more wins, and he would be the leader in New Orleans history in wins. Hopefully he can do something to keep his job. But I think with everyone out, later on, Luke's going to talk about Zion and Ingram and some of their props. On the other side, you've got the Pacers coming off a big win over Boston. That makes this one kind of tricky. You could say, well, Indiana is going to come out and blow them out, or maybe not. And I think the line tells us that that's not going to happen. It's sitting at 4.5. You got two teams here that are, in my opinion, kind of, and then New Orleans is the worst to me. And Indiana, they covered their last two games. They were both as an underdog. They did cover as a favorite of 5.5, but that was against Detroit, although Detroit, I think, is a little bit better than people seem to think. If you go back to last season, Pacers are actually 8-3 against the spread in their last 11 games. I'm going to take a shot in a dud type game, and I'm going to back the Pacers -4.5.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of moving parts. As you mentioned, a lot of injuries for New Orleans tonight. And, the Willie Green conversation, I think, will probably give him a little more time when the roster gets to full quotient point with DeJounte Murray coming back. Obviously only played one game before breaking his hand. But that really brings us to, I think, one of the better parts of this conversation. Zion Williamson in the points market is at 29.5. So they don't have a lot of players. Zion has not played well. He lost weight, and the books seem to think he's going to score 40 tonight. Luke disagrees. Luke, talk to us.
Yeah, this is one of the most intriguing spots I've seen just for a big player on his prop line being so far off of what it should be. And usually the way I cap things is, if the book says something and it's tempting the public to take something, the sharp side wins 60+% of the time. Here, I'm going to go opposite. This might be a public take, but it is an official play for me. I'm going Zion under 29.5 points. It's just simply too high. At some point, the line reaches too high where the value is on the under. My analytics show he's projected for 26. Could he go for 35? Yeah, because he might have to take every shot tonight. But I'm going to ride with the under here and the value. He's only averaging 18 points per game so far this year. Coming off his worst game of the year, he shot 5 of 20 against the Warriors. It was really ugly, so he's not feeling great about his game in terms of shooting the ball. And I think that I just don't know why. I'm kind of almost at a loss for words with this line because I don't know how the heck the Pacers don't guard him. He's the only threat to them tonight, so I think they put all the focus on Zion, and the under is the play here.
Yeah, just jumping off of it because Luke is giving us sharp commentary on every one of these props. I do think Indiana could have a difficult time guarding him tonight because Zion is such a unique professional athlete. The guy's kind of like Charles Barkley. If Charles Barkley could jump out of the gym while playing linebacker and tight end at the same time. And this is where Indiana has basically no players that can match up with that physically. So he's going to just eat down low. He's not going to be shooting threes. Luke on the under. Big conversation. This is one we'll come back to on Monday and really see what happens. Luke on the under 29.5. Coach on the Pacers -4.5. 2 plays, an opportunity to dominate. Nuggets at Timberwolves. Big time basketball on Friday night. A national game, 9:30 in Minneapolis. Here with Luke and Junior. A bunch of official plays in this game. I'm wearing the hat. Not because it looks good, because we like this side of the game. And I'll throw it to Junior, an official play, Minnesota -3.5 for now.
Yeah, I think that at the moment, Denver still has some figuring out to do. Mike Malone, who's a very good coach, one of the best in the league, he will eventually figure it out. But the problem that they have is something that it always existed in this version of their team, but they were able to get away with it in the past. When they won the title 2 years ago, they were 18th in the league in made threes, which is pretty bad. And they were like bottom 5 in 3-point rate in terms of the amount of their shot attempts that were threes. But they were able to get away with that because they were 4th in the league in 3-point percentage. So, that kind of made up for it. It's kind of gone all the way the other way now, where they're still bottom 5 in 3-point rate, but they're not making threes anymore. They're making threes at a rate where they are 14th in the league in 3-point percentage. They're 22nd, down from 18th in made threes. So you put yourself behind the 8 ball every single night. And if that's the case, you're going to have to be very efficient in making twos, which at the moment, they're not really that great at that either. So if you're not making threes and then you regress in terms of making twos, I mean, you don't even have to be slightly intelligent to understand that your team is going to struggle. You add to that they've lost key pieces to their championship run, and they have not done anything to replace them. Like Christian Braun is a great player, but Christian Braun is also a limited player. Whenever he takes a shot outside of 7 to 10 feet, he looks like he's going to get a nosebleed. So you're putting guys in positions that they're not really accustomed to being in, and that's what you're seeing. Whereas Minnesota, I think that they've improved roster-wise because I think that Cat's an addition by subtraction to this specific team, maybe not overall around the league, but they still are trying to figure out their respective roles. I don't want to be too long-winded. I still think Minnesota is going in the right direction, whereas Denver, their problems are not that easily fixable. So 3.5 seems kind of short. I would bet anything up to 4. I think it's 4 now. Give me the better team on a short line, and I don't really buy into this playoff revenge thing. I rather look at it as Denver is Minnesota's litmus test. They're in the same division. They're a defending champ from 2 years ago. They took them to a tough playoff series. There's no way Minnesota's going to come into this game and take it lightly. So I expect Minnesota's best effort considering their record and the circumstances.
Yeah, without question. Throwing it to Luke for a prop, and I will jump off with my takes. Luke likes Jokic under in the assist market at 8.5.
Yes, this is a public fade spot for me. It's his assist line sitting at 8.5. We all know the Joker is as best as it is. He's the best in the business, in terms of being unselfish and dishing the ball from the center position. But people see a line less than 10, and they're like, he's a triple-double machine. He can easily get 10 assists. I'm going over, but the books say otherwise. He's got 9.3 assists per game on the year, and they still put his line below that. And you dig in and you see why. He has 2 games this year so far already with just 4 assists. And if you look at his matchup against Minnesota, for whatever reason, they don't let him dish the ball as easily as other teams do. 4 regular season games last year, he averaged just 4 assists per game. That's half the line we're getting tonight. And things were a little bit better in their 7-game playoff series. He put up 7.9 assists, but still under the line tonight. That's what the books are going off of. That's what I'm going off of. This is a public fade. Jokic under 8.5 assists. I think it'll get to the window.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it really kind of segues me into a lot of the psychology I want to talk about in this matchup. And I'm also on Minnesota at -3.5, and the buy hat is engaged on this Friday. Starting it off, I think this is a great spot to buy low on Minnesota. Minnesota coming off an outright loss to Dallas. And I think that's where Junior was going with this. That was supposed to be the big Minnesota playoff revenge game. Guess what? It didn't happen. This is supposed to be the big Denver revenge game from the playoffs. We don't think it's going to happen. This is a great buy low for Minnesota. They're 1-3 ATS on the season. They're 0-2 ATS at home. They're going to show upward movement in their home efficiency against the number. And Denver is really in shambles right now. Denver's 0-4 ATS. They're in the final game of a 3-game road trip. They're off back-to-back overtime wins against Toronto and Brooklyn, 2 teams graded to be non-playoff teams from the Eastern Conference. And oftentimes when you see a team lose the first 2 outright like Denver did and then win a couple, it suggests they're coming up. Not in this case, because this is an ex-championship team that has played poor in every single game. So they're actually just sustainably at a very low point right now. And I think if you really look at what's going on with this team, they lost KCP and Reggie Jackson off their second unit, and KCP was a starter. This current group, Aaron Gordon, MPJ, Jokic, and Murray, are logging so many minutes in these games. Their bench is basically non-existent. Russell Westbrook, hell of a competitor in his career, cannot do a whole lot on the court right now, is a disruption only. And I think over the long window, I think Denver's showcasing massive fatigue. 2 years ago, they win the title. They have to play until June. And then in the summer, they have to parade around with the trophy. There's more promotion. There's more eyeballs on them. It's a huge emotional drain. They come back last year, played good ball, eventually losing Game 7 to Minnesota in the second round, a game they were up significantly in the first half and blew it late. And then the Olympics this summer. Jokic is playing for Serbia. They almost knock off the U.S. in the semifinals. The emotion is immense. And now it's basically like no break for 3 seasons. And you hear soccer players talk about this all the time. When they have the World Cup in the summer, they feel like they didn't have a break for over 12 months. And in the Denver case, you could argue this is 36 straight months of basketball and off-court promotion with eyeballs on them. I think they're totally fatigued. I think they're going to turn up at some point. As Junior said, the coach is too good to let this team just fall off a cliff. But I think it's not coming until this homestand they get in coming weeks. This is their last road game until November 15th. They have a 5-game homestand after this. They will get some flow there. And this is a heavy Minnesota number. I have Minnesota to win this game by 13 points on the average. Great spot tonight on this Friday. You guys are going to be watching this game. The buy hat is engaged. A collaboration, Junior and myself, Minnesota minus 3.5. And Luke Shuey, the prop master, Jokic under 8.5 assists. Thunder at Blazers, 10 o'clock in Portland, a late night special. 2 officials on this game, a game that has a lot more intrigue than most people would think in the national media. Coach, here, we want to discuss Portland in detail. Coach, looking at the team total over 104.5.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, the public's going to be all over the Thunder, especially their defense. And, you know, public's going to hammer the under here. I don't see it because, you know, a couple of things. One is this is the first game of the road back-to-back for the Thunder. And as a coach, I know we always preached, hey, one game at a time, one play at a time, blah, blah, blah. But you can bet that Oklahoma City's looking ahead to tomorrow night to play the Clippers. I think at some point in this game, they may take their foot off the gas. I looked it up. Portland actually ranks, you know, they're 29th in scoring, I believe, or 25th in game scoring. But in the second half, in the third and fourth quarters, they're right around, middle of the pack, 16, 17, 18 in that range in the second half. So if OKC does take the foot off the gas, I think they're going to be able to, you know, catch up and maybe get a backdoor cover here. The last 3 times these teams played, the spread was 13.5 each game. And I'm sure, Shark, you'll mention this. Each of the last 2, both games were tight. I think they lost by 8 both times. And Portland actually averages 107 a game. So with the team total at 104.5, I like them to go over.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. And my official on this game is Portland at plus 11.5. And as Coach mentioned, this is a matchup that is getting tighter currently in early season 2024-25. And I said this about the Detroit game against the Knicks, 15-time revenge game. Oklahoma City has beaten Portland 12 straight times. So this is a great buy low for a well-coached team in their home gym with Chauncey Billups at the head coaching position. And I was looking at OKC last night, 4-0 straight up, 3-1 ATS. I think cratering down to a certain degree. Hit Denver in the opener. Denver's 0-4 ATS. They've looked terrible. It's not as impressive as people might think. Blew out Chicago. Chicago's been terrible. Blew out Atlanta. Atlanta hasn't been good either. And then a backdoor cover the other night for San Antonio. My point there is they started high. They're definitely cratering down, maybe to an outright loss. And as Coach mentioned, Portland is closing the gap here. Go back to last year, 4 matchups. This is truly insane stuff. The first matchup last year, Oklahoma City beat Portland by 43. Then they came back home and beat Portland by 62. Then they won by 2 and 8. So it seems like the blowouts are gone, and now the matchup is tightening up. And as Coach mentioned, a look ahead to tomorrow And this is really where Portland will compete well on this number. This is a short number, 13 the last 3 times, as Coach said, 11.5 here. I have this game to be similar to the previous game against San Antonio, inside of 10 points. Let's buy this one tonight at plus 11.5. Luke in the house, comments on this game.
Yeah, so I don't love this game for the prop market. I actually don't have anything for a free play or on my VIP card tonight. But if you are looking for some more action, everybody wants to bet every game. So I would actually side with you guys in terms of backing Blazers if you're going to pick somebody. I think the public's going to be on Gilgeous-Alexander. Oh, he's playing the Blazers, hammer his overs. I don't love that. If I maybe an under there. But look at someone like a Scoot Henderson. I mean, the guy could be a 6-man of the year candidate if he keeps playing the way he is. With his high energy off the bench. But I think in general, Blazers overs is where I would lean here, again, as kind of like a sharp public fade spot.
Yeah, great conversation. A couple officials in this game. Late night special on this Friday, November 1st. It is Portland plus 11.5 for the Shark, and Portland team total over 104.5 for the Coach.
Tell me what you gonna do now. Keep rolling, keep rolling.
Thank you guys for watching NBA player performance on this Friday, November 1st, 2024. A great conversation it was. Tons of official plays, an opportunity to dominate. Make sure you get on over to ylose.com, YLOSE.com for free picks, stats, scores, trends, and more. For the legend himself, on vacation, J.A. Cavalier, Downtown Junior Brown, the prop master Luke Shuey, and Coach Rick. I am your guest host, the Shark. Remember, yesterday is a memory, tomorrow's not guaranteed. Be a sharp mind, listen to the Sharps, bet with the Sharps, bet responsibly, and let's dominate this card.
Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. Suffocation.